Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be sharing a repertoire for black against white's first move 1b3. Now, the move 1b3 has been actually gaining popularity, and it has been a very good weapon because it doesn't compromise white's center here and allows white to be flexible. Now, usually this line is better for black, but black can easily go wrong. For example, the most common move, e5, bishop e2, knight c6, e3, knight f6, and after bishop b5, in this type of position, black is usually not better and might not even equalize, mainly because this bishop on b2 is just a good piece. And normally that is exactly what you want to try to prevent in this opening. And here I have a special treat for you guys. So I've been playing this move against 1b3 ever since I've been analyzing it. And this is why I feel like this is the best line. And firstly, against b3, I recommend the move d5. Now, why do I recommend this move d5? Because in reality, d5 just allows this bishop here on this diagonal, and the only way that you stop it is with the move knight f6. And the move knight f6 is extremely natural, but it could result in a double pawn. However, after bishop e2, which is usually played, obviously, what do you think black's best move should be here? Now, obviously, this is just two moves in the opening, but there is this one move that is extremely annoying for white, so take your time and maybe you can find the answer. Alright, if you found the answer, congratulations. In these lines where white plays b3, the main goal for white now is to play the e-pawn to e3 and play bishop b5. However, as you can see, this pawn on e2 needs to move. And in this position, bishop g4. Looking strange at first, but in fact it has a big hidden meaning in it. And this is the line that I want to share with you. Now, most books don't mention this move, so I'll flip the board now. Most books don't even mention this move when they have a b3 repertoire for white, mainly because it's quite rarely played. So the whole point of the move bishop g4 is just to prevent this move e3, and it is very annoying. And here are a few reasons why black can be better easily. So, firstly, I'll take you through a few sidelines. In fact, white's best move, well, sort of best move, is here just to play d4. But in d4, you just block off this bishop, and this has no flavor of 1b3 of what white usually plays. Instead, most players in this position would play knight f3, h3, or f3. And as you'll see, neither of these are good. Firstly, f3. The most, weirdest of all these moves is probably the worst. And black just plays bishop f5. Now, if you play the move e3, all of a sudden you see that with this pawn on f3, the knight has to develop to e2. So here, you can play the move c6, which stops the bishop from coming to c4, b5, a6, sort of d3, because then white's going to be able to double pawn. Which means that the e2 square is the only square available for the bishop. And after bishop e2, where does this knight go? This pawn at f3 is a big blockader, and after something like e5, which should work in this position, because after bishop takes c5, black is queen g5 choice, attacking g2, and threatening bishop takes c2. So after something like, I don't know, this g2 pawn's hang firstly, so king f2 maybe. And then you go bishop c2, queen c2, queen e5. And after something like knight c3, just develop your pieces, and black should be better here. Just coming back, black's better, mainly because this king has to move to protect g2. d4 is a positional threat. Knight f6, bishop d6 are all easy development moves, and that knight on g1 is still very painful. So, bishop g4, f3, and e3 can be met by c6, and in this position, black is better here. So f3 is one of the rare moves in this position, however. Usually, you'll find h3 played, but the best move is knight f3, so which is why I'm only going to cover h3 first, although it's more popular. However, after h3, you play bishop h5, maintaining the pin. Now white's only reasonable move if he ever plays h3 is just to play g4. Here you play bishop g6. After bishop g2, because it's more reasonable to develop the bishop this way now, here black plays h5 immediately, before white has time to develop and before even black has time to develop. Play h5. And the motif behind this is after g5, you can see that this bishop isn't going to be stopped because this bishop is here along this diagonal. White's blockading squares are d3, e4, and f5. f5 is impossible because there will be no g-pawn protecting that square. And h4, h5 is impossible because this pawn's already on h5. This makes this bishop an extremely strong piece in the long term. And in fact, this pawn is so weak that after knight c6, which should be the best move, and after c4 and e6, if you just play something like c takes d5, then all of a sudden black can play queen takes g5, and now black's just winning on the spot because you're attacking the bishop over here. So white has to try these tricks, and although these tricks work here, this is not good for black. Just putting it here. However, yeah, in this position, if rook h2 is played, now this position isn't good. But after knight f3, you just take this pawn, and now black has the upper edge. He's just pinning and winning. And finally, if you play knight c3, which is more commonly played, because you just take this pawn, and the main thing behind it is after knight f3, you're not going to be losing control of d5, because after queen takes g2, rook h2, take your time and find black's only move that is good for him, because his queen is trapped. Okay, so if you found the move, congratulations. The correct move for black in this position is bishop c2. And the main reason why bishop c2 works is that it attacks the queen while the white's attacking the queen. If the queen takes, then now the knight comes to d4, and all of a sudden, now the knight's attacking the queen, the knight's attacking the knight. And if knight takes knight, then there's queen takes rook, or, well, yeah, queen g1's main one. That's even better. But anyway, after knight d4, if something like queen d3 is played, then you can just take on f3, and after e takes f3, then you can take the rook. And there are really no exceptions, because if you take the queen first, then there will be knight takes, followed by taking the rook, and now black is up a rook. After this knight's taken, black's up in the full exchange. And this position is much better for black. Black's winning. So queen c2 doesn't work in this position, and white's best move is just play rook takes g2. And after bishop takes d1, rook takes d1, black is up a pawn for nothing. Black has 8 pawns, white has 7. White's pieces are pretty discoordinated, and after black plays knight f6, or taking, which is the best move, and playing knight f6, now black in long castle, bishop b4, black's completely fine here. So going back, that's why h3, the most popular move, isn't really that good. Because after g4, bishop g6, h5 is coming soon. And after something like bishop g2, h5, and black gets the advantage. So this is where we come to white's best move after this 2-move continuation, and that is knight f3. And the main reason why this works is because bishop takes f3 is just a very deceiving move, but it doesn't actually work. Because after e takes f3, you're giving up the bishop pair so early in the game that both of white's bishops are going to be amazing. And the bishop pair is an extremely strong weapon, as I discussed earlier before, because the bishop pair is useful in all different sorts of openings and endgames. And yeah, I believe I discussed this earlier in an earlier video, but anyway, back on track. After knight f3, here bishop takes f3 is not the best move, but instead you can just play e6. And that's the second idea of the bishop g4 move. Just do not keep this bishop on c8 and just play e6. And although the bishop g4 move is mainly just a big annoyance. And here white can play his original e3 move. And after knight f6, something like c4 can be played. And then after c6, here white almost always plays d4, and we've just transposed back into a normal queen's pawn position, where black plays bishop b4, bishop c3, trade. And this position is more or less better for black, because black has the bulge and the bishop is already outside, while white's bishop is not even developed. But if white doesn't play d4 in this position, which is actually a better alternative, white can play bishop e2, and after h6, h3, the bishop comes to f5 in these cases, because now there's no use of bringing the bishop to h5. And the bishop on f5 is also a strong piece. And this is like a reverse the London system, but this bishop on b2 is just awkward in these types of positions because d4 will have to be played sooner or later. So back to knight f3, e6. Here, white has one final trick up his sleeve, and that's knight e5. And this is where most players don't know what to do. Most players just play bishop f5. But here, just d3, and now the pawns are coming through. White's going to be able to play knight d2 and e4, and all of a sudden this knight on e5 is going to be a big pain. You should never play f6 because the knight just comes back, and this pawn on f6 is the same weakness as this pawn on f3. This bishop doesn't have much places to go and this knight, and they're both going to be cramped. This is why f6 is usually never played. However, in this position, you can instead of playing bishop f5 in this position, you can play h5. And this move is a move that most players don't know about. And the main purpose of this move is, firstly, knight takes g4, h takes g4. This is a good position for black. And the main reason is because white's king side is very underdeveloped. For example, if white tries something like knight c3, then all of a sudden black can play the move g3. And after f takes g3, which looks reasonable at first sight, the move queen g5. And this is like a very common Dutch trap if you guys don't know about it. And the whole purpose of this trap is, for example, if white plays a4. This is obviously a bad move. The move rook takes h2 is an extremely strong move. It's threatening mate in 1, and black's pick up the rook. In fact, this combination after queen g5 or bishop d6, they're both equally strong in this case. And the main reason why this move works after queen g5 is because this pawn and these pawns cannot be protected. The only move that can protect both of these pawns is king f2. But I don't think this is going to be a good position. d4, and now if the knight comes to e4, then queen f5 picks up the knight. So the knight has to come to a4, and then there's queen f5 after king g1, b5. Now that knight's trapped, and all of a sudden black's just completely winning here. No need to further be analyzed. So that's why knight takes g4 doesn't work in a nutshell. However, after h5, now white usually plays h3. And here you see the big exception. Now you see this is going to go into some Caro Khan type position where this bishop on b2 is on the wrong square, should be here. But now black is going to get his h5, h4 stuff in, and now white's king side, which is usually aided by this bishop on b2, has just been completely crippled. And now all of a sudden, all of white's plans are failing. After e3, for example, knight d7 to trade off these knights. And if knight takes, queen takes, black's will play knight f6, bishop d6, long castles, and g5, g4. And all of a sudden, black's just winning here. Well, not winning, but better here. And if, after bishop f5, if white plays d3, which is the normal move in this position, and then you can just play c6. And this c6 move just further solidifies this d5 stronghold, and where this bishop on b2 can do nothing. After knight d2, knight f6, g3. Usually white decides to fianchetto these types of positions, because after e3, you can see that after the quick exchanges, white's position is very crippled. g3, well, not that g3. Where am I? Yeah, let's see. Yeah, so here. And after c6, knight d2, this g3. Now this bishop can come to g2. But after it hits g2, that's a pawn chain it's hitting on. After knight d7, knight takes, queen takes, bishop g2, bishop c5. Black overall has a better position. And after castles, black can even play the move e5, which discovers attack on the h3 pawn. And overall, black is a lot easier to play in this position. And this is why this move works so well. So, in conclusion, after b3, d5, bishop e2, black has this, you can say, refutation move of bishop g4. and all of a sudden this pawn can't move, and all of white's plans are disrupted. It's just a 2-move line, yet it's so powerful, as you can see with the amount of lines I shared. I shared knight f3, h3, f3, and why I explained that all these moves are not good. And as I said in the beginning, d4 is white's best move, but that doesn't really help white too much. So yeah, that's this 1b3 complete refutation in a nutshell. This move bishop g4, wow, that's not a diagonal. There it is. The move bishop g4 is an extremely powerful move, which completely disrupts all of white's plans. Like, that's impossible now. And if white decides to take precautions with the move h3, which is the most common move to be played, after bishop h5, black can play a very calm position by playing an early h5. And in these types of positions, only black is better. So that's bishop g4 for you guys. You can also try this in your future games, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.